When was the moment where you thought, well, this could be an interesting path for me?
Have always loved writing, and I really love forming the copy. And so this was a really great way for me to marry that side of me and the artistic side of me at the same time. And so I felt like I was able to convey more personally through pieces that had lettering. I had difficulty like finding my voice as just doing art without words. I was when I first started out, I was like, am I abstract? Am I realistic? Am I like, I just didn't find my footing. But when I put lettering into the mix, it all kind of made sense. And it was funny because I look back at my childhood and I was literally procrastinating doing the things that my parents wanted me to be doing, like practicing roller skating. I would go off onto the sidelines and sneakily work in my calligraphy book, but I never put together until later in life that that's something that I should be doing as a job. So it all kind of comes full circle, doesn't it?
I started by introducing hand lettering into like logo design, which is what I started out with doing. And looking back, I'm like, I can't believe I ever did that because I just don't feel that called to it. But I think both Katie and I had this experience where in school during critiques, people were so cutthroat. And I remember there was this one super talented artist that I went to high school with, and she would hand letter and like create her own, display type. And when we were in editorial class, I was just like, she's so perfect. I could never do that. And then the culture around critiques where people would just rip your work apart, I was like, I could never put up my lettering on there. And so when I look back at my childhood, I have like that American Girl doll book. I would basically write all my notes, and then I would crunch them up if they weren't perfect enough. So like, I think writing as an art form has always been something I've been drawn to, but I never knew it was something that I could actually incorporate into graphic design.
Hello and welcome back to Open Studio. I'm your host, Martina Flor, and today I have two special guests with me, Katie and Ilana from Goodtype. If you are in the lettering world, you have probably come across Goodtype. It's one of the biggest platforms for lettering artists, and Katie and Ilana have been leading it since 2022. But before taking over Goodtype, they started as lettering artists and business owners themselves, doing client work and building their own licensing portfolios. And today we're going to talk about their stories, how they built their careers, how it was like to take over Goodtype. We're also going to discuss the world of licensing, and we are also, of course, having our Art in Focus section where we'll discuss a piece of their work. So stick around because there's a lot coming. And now it's time for me to finally say hello, Katie and Ilana.
Hi.
Welcome to Open Studio. How are you doing today?
Hi. We're great. Thank you for having us.
I'm so excited to have this conversation with you two. First, because I know that you started as lettering artists and you continue to run your businesses as lettering artists, but also you have this partnership where you run a platform like Goodtype, which is such a big responsibility as well. But I would like to start by the beginning. So for those who might not be familiar with your story, can you tell us how each of you got started in lettering and the typography world?
Go
Yeah,
for it, Ilana.
absolutely. We have like bizarrely similar paths. And so both Katie and I went to graphic design, school for graphic design. We got our bachelor's, in fine art. And we just weren't fulfilled in our agency jobs. I think like many people who graduated around the same time as us, we were told to go work at an agency and that was how you found success. And we both just weren't feeling successful. We felt really unfulfilled. And so we started doing side projects and freelancing, and we took a little bit of a different turn here. Katie wrote like a 40-page business plan of how she could work for herself. And I just like waited until the stars aligned. And I was like, all right, this is it. But I did wait like 2 or 3 years. I did, make some plans, just maybe not as in-depth as Katie's. Mine really took a turn when I was getting more freelance work and getting paid more for my freelance work than I was at my full-time job. And so we both went off on our own, and we started with a line of greeting cards, and we were selling them on Etsy. And shortly after that is when we started to notice each other online. And I just slid into Katie's DMs because I really loved her work. I actually found her on Goodtype when she was featured, started following her, and she posted about art licensing. And that was one of the revenue streams that I was tapping into as well that really allowed me to go freelance. And so I messaged her and I said, that's so cool that you're going to do a course. I've been thinking about this too. And Katie just took a chance on me. It was like, want to do it together? And like literally from there, it's just been a yin and a yang. And so it's kind of crazy how our paths just crossed. This was all before we even met in person too.
That's so interesting because also I didn't know that you had this origin story in terms of like that you started graphic design and then you got a job in an agency like many of us did. I have a similar path as well. And it's funny because a few days ago I interviewed on the podcast Jimbo Bernaus. He is a lettering artist. Yeah. And he had a very similar path as well. I think many of us were tricked into believing that graphic design was going to be really creative, and then suddenly we learned the hard way that or at least the professional life didn't feel as fulfilling, and then we dived into lettering. What was it for you? What was that thing that you found in lettering that really felt like the next step? When was the moment where you thought, well, this could be an interesting path for me?
For me, I have always loved writing, and I really love forming the copy. And so this was a really great way for me to marry that side of me and the artistic side of me at the same time. And so I felt like I was able to convey more personally through pieces that had lettering, because I'm not I don't know, I had difficulty like finding my voice as just doing art without words. I was when I first started out, I was like, am I abstract? Am I realistic? Am I like, I just didn't find my footing. But when I put lettering into the mix, it all kind of made sense. And it was funny because I look back at my childhood and I was literally procrastinating doing the things that my parents wanted me to be doing, like practicing roller skating, which I was weirdly in for 8 years. I would go off onto the sidelines and sneakily work in my calligraphy book, but I never put together until later in life that that's something that I should be doing as a job. So it all kind of comes full circle, doesn't it?
That's great. And what about you, Ilana? When was the time where you said like, well, this could be a career path for me?
I mean, I started by introducing hand lettering into like logo design, which is what I started out with doing. And looking back, I'm like, I can't believe I ever did that because I just don't feel that called to it. But I think both Katie and I had this experience where in school during critiques, people were so cutthroat. And I remember there was this one super talented artist that I went to high school with, and she would hand letter and like create her own, display, type. And when we were in editorial class, I was just like, she's so perfect. I could never do that. And then the culture around critiques where people would just rip your work apart, I was like, I could never put up my lettering on there. And so it didn't really feel like an it didn't feel like an option. And like Katie said, both Katie and I have been called to actually write. We're actually finalizing our next book together right now. And so when I look back at my childhood, I have like that American Girl doll book, and then I would basically write all my notes, and then I would crunch them up if they weren't perfect enough. So like, I think writing as an art form has always been something I've been drawn to, but I never knew it was something that I could actually incorporate into graphic design. And I think the same goes for illustration too. It's like you take the fine art class or you go into graphic design and you like actually have to know how to draw, but people don't associate them as like related, I feel like. And so, yeah, when I started lettering, it was just to try and stay creative and get out of the funk of my full-time job, and then found ways to incorporate it into my work that felt really fulfilling.
But to be fully transparent too, in college, I was terrified of typography. I literally, I really didn't know anything about graphic design going into college. That was like kind of my first intro into it. And so I saw typography class on my class schedule, and I was like, okay, I don't know why they want me to learn about maps to start out, but I guess I will. So I thought it was topography. So that shows how little I knew or was prepared. But yay, thanks school, you taught me a lot. But also in school, there were a lot of students who did know things, and they would like kind of hold that over their classmates' heads a little bit, and they were like, oh, you're not supposed to use that typeface, you're not supposed to, like, that's a bad font. And so I got really scared because I didn't have a background. I didn't know what fonts were good or bad, or like who was gonna call me out for like using something I wasn't quote unquote supposed to. So I think I was afraid to kind of go in that direction until I felt like a little bit more confident in design in general, and like I didn't need to listen to that noise necessarily. But I just wanted to point that out because I think a lot of people go through that and they feel like, I'm not allowed to be in this space. I don't know enough. I'm not good enough. I can't, stand here and do my thing because people are going to point out where I messed up. But yeah, I that's an environment that we want to ex-nay at Goodtype.
Yeah,
ex-nay on the mean type.
We've actually done some presenting on this topic, and we've sort of named this person who doesn't create a safe space for other designers. And this is with the help of AI, we created this idea. So we've named this person Derek. And so Derek is that design snob who like comes in and is like, hey, you did this wrong. And it's like, first of all, there's no wrong way to design something. Second of all, like, imagine being new at something and then having someone else judge you for that. Like, Katie, how would you have known what was good? Like, this was your first experience. Like, that's crazy.
No, and it paralyzed me for a little bit. I just was like, I don't have this information, and somebody's calling me out for it. So I'm in this spot where I'm like, all you can do is A, increase your confidence, and B, learn, and C, like, get rid of their voice in the back of your head, because it doesn't matter ultimately. It's your voice that matters. But that takes time to be okay with that.
Yeah, and I think for many, just to add to that, I can totally see that Derek telling you like, yeah, that this is too difficult. It's not like ABC and then you have a lettering piece, right? And I do also agree that everything can be learned, and lettering is one of those things. But at the same time, I see, when I look back at the beginning of my career, I see, and I think now lettering as a craft is widespread. People know about it. When you talk about lettering, people know what you're talking about. But back then it was like, what are you talking about? And even if you would speak about type design, it felt like something like very scientific, like just a few people were able to do this, and it felt like really hard and really technical, which it is in a way. But at the same time, this is also something that can be learned. And I know that for many, it can feel a little bit intimidating because there's the creative aspect of it, and at the same time there's the technical aspect to creating lettering, which both need to be learned and approached and understood. So I'm wondering, what were the first steps that you gave into lettering? So you had all these fears to step into this and making these mistakes. What can you remember, like the first lettering piece that you created?
Yes. Oh yeah, vividly.
Oh yeah, totally.
I did a 30-day challenge, which like looking back, it was, I already had the like knowledge of typography, but I did a 30-day challenge where it was like more handwriting, I would say, like kind of using the tool and like manipulating the tool to create fun letters, but I took it to the next level and then tried to vector everything. And I mean, it was great. I had a lot of fun, but it was just a 30-day challenge where every day I had to write a word. And not only was I doing it analog and then digital, but I also just was playing. And I think that's the thing that like sparks the excitement, is like, oh wait, I'm not good at something again. And like to try and close that gap when you're really excited to close it. So I just did 30 days. And then every inspirational quote you could come up with under the sun.
Yeah, I started trying to incorporate lettering while I was at my art direction job, and I was doing a lot of the production work as well because we were a small agency and we were trying to be pretty nimble. And I did have graphic design experience, so anytime that I could, I would pitch the client something that involved lettering. And I wasn't necessarily that great at it at the time, but it was a really great way for me to learn. And looking back at some of those pieces, I'm like, oh my gosh, those are for real life clients, and that went out. And I wouldn't necessarily have let that go out now, but at the time I did. And I learned a lot. I had a coworker who was like a senior designer who I remember the first lettering piece that I did there. It was like kind of it was scripty and almost calligraphic, and I passed it over to him and I was like, could you mark this up? And he gave it back to me and the whole thing was red. And I was like, oh my god. But I literally, like, it was to the point where I didn't even have the stress in the right places. Like, I was that unsure of just the structuring of lettering and script. And so I learned a lot of big lessons during that project. And once I went out on my own, I started doing the homework challenges from Lauren Hom when those were in their heyday. And that's really when I started seeing other people who were like around the same level that I was, putting their art there out into the world. And it made me feel more comfortable and confident. And, you know, I was able to get reactions that were more positive than I had in school. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
Hey, I'm interrupting the conversation to let you know that Ilana and Katie from Goodtype are going to be part of our dream team of instructors inside the Lettering Seminar 2025. As you know, the Lettering Seminar is my signature program to learn the art and business of lettering, and it happens just once a year. So if you want to be part of this year's edition, make sure you sign up for the waiting list on the letteringseminar.com. I'm going to add this to the show notes so that you can find it. The program is starting mid-April, so make sure you sign up for the waiting list so that I can let you know when registrations are open. Now, back to the show. That's great. That's such a great advice for those that are wondering, okay, how do I get started into this world? I think also knowing that many of them are graphic designers wondering how they incorporate more creative work into their generalist work. That is such a good strategy just to try to infuse lettering into every project possible. So if you have to design a flyer, just add some lettering to it. If you have to solve a logotype for a client, just add lettering to it, or solve it with lettering. And this is how you also get comfortable with the technique and you build up a portfolio. So I'm wondering, from those first lettering pieces that you created, when was the turning point where you said, like, well, I'm actually allowed to call myself a lettering artist and build, or feel confident enough to call myself lettering artist, because you can call yourself a lettering artist from day one if you like. So what was that turning point where you started taking this seriously and you felt like you were building a career as lettering artist? Was there any project or any specific thing that happened, or a client that came your way, or
Yeah, for me, it was when I went to my first Letter West retreat. Letter West, that was started by Becca Clayson, and I've seen you there, Martina, at Letter West, the conference. And at the retreat, it was like one of the most pivotal moments of my life, because I was, for the first time, able to be surrounded by people who were in a very similar place to me and who were so open and so kind and so supportive of one another. And there was no judgment and there was no hierarchy. And so I felt really comfortable in that place to be able to call myself one of the community. And so I think that's the point where I started saying I'm a lettering artist more.
That's amazing. Like a little bit like you didn't feel like this this weirdo that was doing lettering at home and no one knew about it, but that you found out like there were other people on the same path. That's really cool.
The community aspect has been like game changing for me. When I was trying to do it by myself in a silo, I was in my own head. I was way too harsh on myself. But being able to be around other people and encouraging each other and supporting each other, it's just my top recommendation for anyone in any field is to surround yourself with other people who are in the same field, and good people who are excited for each other and to watch each other grow.
Yeah, it makes so much sense with what you're doing now, and we're gonna touch. We're gonna dive into Goodtype next, but I wanted to know for Ilana, what was that moment?
Yeah, it's so funny because I think we still sometimes, not necessarily with letterer, but like when you meet someone in an elevator, I think we've all had that moment where we're like, well, I'm a designer, graphic designer, and lettering artist. You know what I mean? Like you trip on your words, and like Martina, you know this too. You're an author as well. Like you also teach, and you're an educator, and you're a podcast host, and it's like, how do you put all of those into like a quick just condense that a little bit. And so I think for me though, I started to take myself really seriously, and this is the moment where I decided to quit my job. Like I was like, okay, it's finally time, was when I booked a job that I like felt like it was the dream job, a freelance job. And that was a licensing job. It was my first licensing job ever. When I signed it, I had absolutely no idea what licensing was. I didn't know anyone else who was licensing. And so I like really took, like, it was like a shot in the dark. And after 18 months, once I had finished the project and been paid the royalties, it ended up paying me more than my full-time job, which is not normal. Like, I have to say, that's never happened to me again, with one job and like just a couple pieces of art. And so that to me was like, oh wow, like somebody legit hired me for this and they see my talent, and like if they see it, then like I should probably also see it and believe in myself. And so that's when I really took a chance on myself and took myself really seriously.
That's so good. And I'd love to dive into Goodtype next, which I know that up until 2022, you were running like separate business, and then you came together to take over Goodtype, which was founded by Brooke Robinson. Yeah. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would love to know how this opportunity came up, and also what made you say yes, because when I look at Goodtype at the moment that you took over, it was a massive platform for lettering artists and for typography. And I think that is also comes with a lot of responsibility. So I wonder, what was that process? And also what made you say, yes, I will take on this responsibility and leave my solo business and move on to like this partnership with Katie and with Ilana and and manage all the moving pieces of a platform like this one.
I think what Katie said is like the reason it was such a yes for both of us. We had both been so impacted by the community of other people making art, and we wanted that for ourselves, and we were trying to build our own community. And so it was like an immediate yes. Like we didn't even have to ask each other. Like it was such an easy yes for us. And we had been doing business under a different name. We had already started like formally working together, and basically the conversation started when we did a collab with Goodtype. We did a JV webinar, and it just was received really well. It was about art licensing, and after that we had a conversation, and basically Bodhi was like, I love what you're doing. I'd love you to bring that aspect of the education piece to Goodtype, because for so long Goodtype was based on not just because community is so important, but it was community only. And so there was an opportunity to shift the tides, because the internet as we knew it was shifting as well. Like, it started as Instagram is very different now than it was when Instagram started. And so there was just an opportunity there, and Bodhi kind of said, they were ready to do their art and take a different path. And so I think it was a lot of like putting ourselves out there and just right time, right place, and the stars aligning. And like, I don't know, it was wild.
And one of our biggest tenets before we started Goodtype was bringing business knowledge to artists to help fill in that big gaping gap in our education. A lot of us, whether we go through school or are self-taught, there's just not enough available information out there about how to run your own business, even if it's a side hustle that is a business. You are a business owner if you make money outside of your 9 to 5 at all, okay? So put on that hat. You can call yourself a business owner, but there's such a gap, and we wanted to make people feel like they could do it and like it wasn't just something that they're not allowed to step into because that's for people with an MBA, that's for people who have a professional degree, which is what I kind of previously thought, and why I felt like I needed to make my 40-page business plan, because I did not have any knowledge about business, and so I was very nervous jumping into that chasm. But yeah, so that was one of our biggest pillars. And when we talked to Bodhi about taking over Goodtype, she was like, this is an area that you all are tackling that I've wanted to tackle, and I just haven't had the time, the bandwidth, the space. Yeah. And so we had a lot of discussions with Bodhi before we stepped into our new role about how we were going to start integrating those education pieces and taking Goodtype from just a really great inspiration and community space to a place where you can also empower yourself and learn how to make money doing what you love.
Yeah.
And just to make it clear for our listeners, because I think many of us got to you because we started following Goodtype on Instagram, and we saw that as a platform to feature other artists. But I think it has grown wider and deeper. So I would love to understand the pieces that you have inside Goodtype.
Yeah, and I do want to touch on, like, of course, when a business kind of shifts hands or pivots, things are going to change. And that's something we've, thought about a lot. And something we talked with Bodhi a lot was like, okay, if we make these changes, Goodtype might look different than it did. And the thing is, every business is going to go through that, especially one that's virtual. And, we started as a feature account, and a feature account isn't the same thing as it was. I mean, our documentation shows us that when you feature someone, unless it's a collab post, you actually get penalized. And so I think, Goodtype started as a place for people to just find other artists. And I still think we do that, and we try and keep that really front and center. But it's become more of a place for people to connect and take that connection deeper than just following someone online. And that's something we really wanted to emphasize, is like, it's not just about a follow, or it's not just about numbers on social media, because those look so different than when Goodtype started. But the bulk of what we do is actually, I guess maybe 50-50 at this point, is, we still create artwork, and then we're really focusing this year on building back up our creativity and our portfolios, because when you start introducing education, oftentimes that takes so much more of your energy in different ways that there isn't as much left for your own work. And so this year we've really set out to ramp up our own work, but at the same time continuing to serve up education. And so we have online courses, but we also have a conference that we host, a virtual conference that we host once a year called the Kernference. And, through all of that, we're, like Katie said, we're really trying to stick to that core that Katie and I feel so strongly about, of helping people feel like they can make a viable career out of working for themselves as artists, or working on the side, or, just feeling really good about that. And we want to do that not only by teaching it, but by also showcasing it. And so we have to create our own work and work with clients in that capacity as well, which we're excited to revamp this year.
Yeah, and we're currently in the phase of updating our website to make this extra crystal clear. And so we're really envisioning Goodtype as these two separate blocks now. So the one block is the education, everything that we've been doing. That's our courses, our huge blog, lots of YouTube videos, all of that kind of stuff. The community aspect lives there. We have a Slack channel. And then this other section we're calling Goodtype Studio for now. It's kind of morphed in the name, but we'll see. And that's just Ilana and my design practice. So and our licensing portfolio and our freelance work lives there.
So it seems that your partnership as the two design studios and lettering studios that came together to run Goodtype are also becoming more visible through that platform. And I wonder, what were the challenges? I run I'm the owner of my company, and I'm the head of the company as well. And I always wonder how it would be like to partner with someone. On one hand, I feel sometimes that I need someone just to make decisions with me and just to, I don't know, brainstorm about things. I do have a team, but I'm always carrying on with like the biggest responsibility in that sense.
Right.
And I always wonder like how it's like to have a partner. And I wonder how that was like for you when you came together with two separate business, and you had the big responsibility of leading Goodtype. What were the challenges that you found along the way? And to add to this question, I see that there's a lot of different things that you do within Goodtype, with the mission of Goodtype. The feature account, the online conference, the community. So how do you separate the tasks and the roles over there?
Great question.
We are also wondering.
Yeah.
Do you want to tackle that, Ilana, or start? And
Sure.
Chime in.
First of all, this is like 5 years in the making. So we started small. So we started by just doing one course together. And when that course wrapped up and we had seen the response from people, we realized, wow, this was really fun to work together. And this was really easy to work together. And so we decided to take it to another level. And, at that time, we're still freelancing. We still have our separate lives. Now they're completely intertwined. But, this is a long time in the making, first of all. But also, we've found time and time again that, like, most people will not care about what you care about to the level that you care about it, right? So no one's going to be as invested in your projects as you are. Katie and I are both as invested in these projects. And so like financially and emotionally. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is that even when you have like someone who you hire, they don't care about your business as much as you do. And that's not like an insult. That's like, it's not their baby. So they can love it very much and want to, take care of it, but it's very different. And so I think Katie and I just really got so lucky in that we both are just as passionate, but we also have found that we're a yin and a yang. And so, Katie, maybe you want to talk about our process a little bit. And I mean, it took us time to figure that out, but I think we wouldn't have figured it out otherwise if we weren't working together.
Yeah. So I think, as to your point, Martina, of what were the challenges, I think that was upfront. One of the bigger challenges was, okay, how do we divide and conquer? We both kind of had the same background and what we learned how to do on paper. And so we were like, which tasks are right for whom? And so we had to just go through the process of trying to just do it on the fly and seeing where we naturally went, or like, if I did something and I freaking hated it and Ilana happened to be better at it, I'd be like, hey, you come over here, I'll go over there. And overall, the biggest things we learned about each other is that Ilana is really good at getting things out onto the page, taking quick action, and like, we can be talking about, we should reach out to this person and check on a collab. And I'm like, why don't you email them? And she's like, already did while you were talking about that. And I'm like, great. And then I'm the one who like really thinks deeply and for a long time about things, and I turn over all the possibilities. And so I'm more of like a long-term like strategic thinker, and I'm the one who will come in and kind of poke holes in things, which is kind of lame, but I guess that's my role sometimes. It's a necessary part of things, I guess. So yeah, we call her the messy first draft, and I'm like the spit shine that comes at the end. And so that's kind of how we like overall look at things. And then Ilana has also, because of her quick decisive action, she's taken over our inbox. And then we'll like have a meeting in the morning, and she'll be like, what do you think about this? How should I respond to this? What should we do? And then like we'll talk about it. And so yeah, that's kind of top level how we handle
and
that.
when last year when we said to each other, like, we should license our work together, and we did sit down and think, like, how would that work? Because, you know, the process of creating one greeting card is pretty individual, but we were like, could we make this something that we work more cohesively on? And we have figured that out. So some of the cards in our portfolio, some of the art in our portfolio will be all Katie, some will be all me, but there's a really fun middle ground where I sketch out a crazy idea. Maybe I ask Katie for help with copy. Maybe we talk it through, and I like kind of pencil sketch what's in my head. And that alleviates a part that takes Katie, you know, more time than it takes me. And then the part that I usually get stuck is like, I usually end up hating my work when it's like moved from that messy sketch into like starting to be a real thing. And then I just don't like it anymore. And so, yeah, it's cool to challenge yourself and do things that are hard, but also it's really cool to just do things you're really good at and like really enjoy doing. And so recently we've come out with some work where I've done a pencil sketch, and it's like not that tight, it's a little bit loose, but it like gives the general idea, and then Katie finishes it off, and it's so cool. We're both really happy with that process, but knowing that there's enough wiggle room that if we have an idea, we can pursue it, and if we want the other person to tap in, they can as well. I feel like that's kind of our little golden
and
spot.
we're constantly like slacking each other whenever we get stuck or something, or like, this color palette isn't it, what do you think? And yeah, so it's really cool to have that collaboration.
That's so great. And I think it's the perfect segue to share your work and go on to our Art in Focus section, which is one of my favorite parts of the show. So Ilana, you have selected a series of pieces that you have shared with me. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to talk about them. You already gave us a little bit of a preview of how your work process is. So I have these 3 pieces of work with me. So I'm going to just go through them. And I would love to first understand, so this is the series you were talking about just now, or is this... Okay, so this is going to be part of your studio, like in the new website that you're envisioning, it's going to be part of your studio, Goodtype studio, right?
Yep.
And you're creating these pieces of work together. So as I understood, Ilana, you're starting with the sketches, and then Katie is taking over all the polishing, or do you go back and forth in this?
Yeah, so for these, I think all of these are my copy ideas.
I was just going to say, we did write a whole list of copy based on the client brief, but I think these are all yours.
All right, so you start there. So that's the first step, let's say, of the process. Just trying to map out the process.
Step 1, list all the copy. And like I said earlier, copy is one of my favorite parts. So I really like to dive into that and the wordplay and the fun puns or things like that. And then I sent that list to Ilana, and she picked the ones that really spoke to her, or she had an immediate idea in her head of how it should look. She sketched out quite a few thumbnails of all of that list, and this is for our licensing portfolio, which we can talk about a little bit more about what licensing is and all of that. But so this is for our licensing portfolio, specifically around the holiday of the Valentine's Day. And so once she sketched those thumbnails out, she sent it back to me. I picked the ones that really spoke to me, and so we continually like narrow down to the best ideas, and then I would render them and produce them, send them to Ilana for any feedback, and that's the process.
And why are there 3 and not 4 or 2?
We have more.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't necessarily need to, or you don't necessarily choose the number of of pieces, because usually companies want to license 3 artworks at the same time, or there's no strategic decision behind it.
So these are for greeting cards specifically designs for Valentine's Day, and a lot of times companies will just grab one card at a time. Maybe they'll get two, but almost always they've nabbed up one. Well, I guess I have done series, but not usually within one occasion. Usually if it's a series, I've found it's like multiple occasions at once that they'll grab. Yeah. But we're just trying to build out our licensing portfolio with work that we've collaborated on together. So we're just kind of going through each occasion in which you would give somebody a card and just building out as many of the ideas that we are compelled to build. Yeah. And then moving on to the next occasion. And that's how we're just starting our collaborative licensing.
And this one also came from a client we had previously worked with. This came from a brief where they kind of said, here's what we're looking for. And so another reason, there's actually two more or a couple more that will be kind of in this, past couple weeks of work. But we, are on timelines. And so there's, we're doing what we can. And we have previous work that we can submit as well. I'm just trying to give a little bit of more insight into like a licensing portfolio. But one of the things we did as well was we took this Never a Dull Moment with You Valentine's Day card, and then I pulled the elements that Katie used in this illustration, and then I made a repeating pattern of it so that potentially someone could then say, okay, let's turn this into a gift bag or wrapping paper or tissue paper or something, or even like the liner.
Or an envelope liner.
The envelope liner. And then I added some elements too, like I kind of took this style of lettering and then added a new phrase to a different piece of paper or a notebook. And so, yeah, it's kind of nice how they're just sort of one-offs. So you really don't have to overthink it. And we've talked about perfectionism a lot, Katie and I. And so I think that works in our favor is like I can just crank out designs and like not feel that attached to them, and so then Katie can come in with a more critical eye and say, I think this one is the strongest, let's leave the others for now, and we can just focus on one piece at a time.
Yeah, and I'd say altogether, I mean, how long does your sketching process take, Ilana? It's pretty fast.
Yeah,
right?
It's pretty fast. I mean, I probably sat down for like an hour or two and made all the sketches. Sometimes less because maybe I have an idea already.
And then these cards, actually producing them can take me anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. So usually it's somewhere in there. But it used to take me way longer, and I have, done a bajillion of these cards. So now I pretty much have an idea in my head of like what brushes I'm going to use. Like I have I feel like my previous self would be like, oh, that's so fast, because it used to take me like days to do this. But I don't know, maybe somebody's like, that's slow as a turtle. But
no, I think as you grow as an artist and you get to do more and more projects, you also become more efficient. And I always compare this with like taking the same road to go to work. Like I feel that I have certain roads that I take often and that I know already. So I know that this one would take me 2 minutes shorter than the other one, and therefore like you use them often. And I'm wondering, looking at the series, I'm wondering what are the things that you love about them, that you think like, well, we really nailed it with this one. This one is going to sell more than others. Or what are the things that you look at when creating specifically, and we're going to dive into exactly what licensing is and how to build a licensing portfolio. But what are the things that you like to have on a piece that is created for licensing? So I guess the text is one big piece of that, so the copy. But what are the things you look into that you have learned from experience?
I mean, I think if we make a card that we would buy, that's a really good start, because I know in a lot of like client projects, we're making things that at the end of the day, we're like, well, it's their logo, like, but this is really like, we often can create like a special moment where someone feels like this card is literally perfect for the person I want to give it to, and that's really nice. And so I think we've kind of hit a couple different ideas here. Like we've hit something that's a little more retro. We've hit something that's maybe perfect for like a teacher or two teachers. We've hit something that's like maybe for a photographer, or maybe it's for someone who like loves taking pictures on their phone, And so, I think when we feel like we've created something that is unique that will resonate with someone, that's a really good start.
Yeah, like having that persona of who's the customer that's going to pick it up, and having a really clear vision of who that person is a good sign. And then one thing that I was really paying attention to in the production of these was picking colors that felt fresh for Valentine's Day and a little bit tweaked, but as soon as you look at it, you know it's Valentine's. But yeah, it's a little bit more like modern, and I always added like a twist of a color that's not just pinks and reds. So like this image we're on right now has a green background, which is a little unusual, but it's still, I think you can still tell it's Valentine's Day with the amount of pinks and then the word Valentine. Same with the introduction of blue and the Never a Dull Moment with You. So that's something I really focused on. It is important because people are browsing through aisles of greeting cards quickly, and their eyes are either going to be attracted to your card or it's going to breeze right past it. So you need to be able to really quickly convey what is the card for, what is the occasion in which you would send the card, and then you also need to make it interesting enough to stand out from the others on the shelf next to it. So it's like a two-step process. So I'm saying this is Valentine's, but it's not just like any Valentine's.
Right. I feel like we've also talked about that with like oftentimes art licensing, because it's for big box stores, it needs to like be on trend. And then the issue that happens is that people lean so far into the trends that everything sort of starts to look the same. And so we've all seen the like cake illustrations lately. And so Katie and I love those. I mean, they're adorable, and I'm obsessed with cake anyway. And so we decided to do a bunch of desserts that were still cake, but were done in a really different way. And so I'm really excited about that collection, and I love Katie's technique on how she like makes things look like frosting. And so it's like finding a little tiny gap that still is like mainstream enough to feel like it's us, or feel like other people will get it, but then making sure it still feels enough like it's us, that like our voice isn't diminished and that it still stands out. And I think a successful card is like one that we feel like we've done that, where we feel like we created something that's unique enough and we're proud of. And then of course there's like the things, you know, hierarchy and making sure it's legible, especially with script. But yeah, if you're shopping in like Target and there's 800 cards to sift through, that can be really challenging. And so I think a lot of it is like our own perception, or our own kind of milestones for success, or like checkpoints. But then, you know, there's also making sure your artwork, you know, that if it's in Target or something, the top third of the artwork should have the like primary, you know, something to catch your eye. And so yeah, we've learned a lot about greeting cards over the years.
And I wonder, like, when you look at this, I guess these are finished pieces already, like you are already like uploading them to your portfolio. I wonder, what are the things that you would change if you could go back?
These ones are so fresh.
Yeah. We literally just made these like last week. So I feel like I'm pretty happy with them, and I'm gonna wait and see how what client feedback we get, if they are picked, if they aren't, and you know, we can always adjust from there.
I think another reason we feel that though is because it's literally just a greeting card, and that's not to say like greeting cards aren't amazing. Totally. Like we love greeting cards, but like it's literally just a greeting card. And so if the client says like, hey, it's cool that you tried a different color, but like go back to red and pink, we can do that. And if the client is like, I don't like this style of lettering, which they don't really say, they just don't pick up the card. They're like, well, we'll just find a different one. You know, great. And so it's just a greeting card. And I think that mentality, which we've had to learn, like we did not always have that mentality, is like, if this card doesn't get picked up, great. We have 500 other ones you can look between. And these are just the ones that we did.
And I learned something from creating this one.
Yeah. And they're just not precious.
I think if you are a perfectionist, which I am a recovering perfectionist, I'm in current process of unlearning my perfectionist qualities, greeting cards are a perfect exercise for you, because it just lets you get them out the door, next piece out the door, and it doesn't have to be the best greeting card that's ever existed every time. It's just, I made a piece, on to the next one.
That's amazing. That's a good mindset also because it's a small piece of work.
Right.
And that takes a little bit of the weight of your shoulders in terms of having to create the lettering piece. It is just a card. So that's a great mindset for those listening. So we have dived right into art licensing without actually saying what art licensing is. And I bet that many of our listeners are wondering, okay, what art licensing is and what is the process of licensing a piece of work. So can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yes. So licensing is essentially renting your art for a client to use on a product. So greeting cards are obviously a great example of this and probably definitely my most licensed piece. And basically you create the art ahead of time. So this is different than your traditional freelance work where your portfolio is full of examples of stuff you've done for other clients, and then you get a new client who wants you to make something totally new and custom to them. Well, art licensing is you pre-create the pieces in your portfolio, so you have to essentially guess what clients are going to want to see and want to put on their products. You fill your portfolio with those things, and then you reach out to clients and you try to sell them on those pieces. So they pluck those directly out of your portfolio and stick them on products. Beyond greeting cards, there's so many things that you can license art for. There's fabric, there's home goods, you can do art prints, you can do kitchenware, party goods, there's like apparel. It's pretty much if you go to a big box store and you walk around and look down the aisles and see how much art there is on everything, your eyes will totally be open to the opportunities. And when you are deciding what area you want to concentrate on for licensing your art, we like to think about, okay, first of all, what type of art do you make? Does it have a natural inclination for, like, if you love repeat patterns, you're probably going to want to focus on like gift wrap and fabric and home goods and those types of things. If you love lettering, you might be more of a greeting card person, maybe apparel. So start there. And then also another layer that we like to add in is think about your interest outside of art. So if you are a really outdoorsy person, maybe you want to license your stuff for outdoors, like apparel or like bike seats or water bottles or, you know, any kind of thing like that. If you love pets, there's so many pet goods out there. So there's lots of ways to tie in your extra interests outside of art and just like really find your niche in a place that feels very authentic to you.
So you just mentioned how to start, you know, creating this artwork that you can license to companies and brands. Now I wonder how do you, and you gave a little bit of a sneak peek when we were talking about your artwork before, that you mentioned, okay, we created this set of postcards, and now we're thinking of using some of the elements to create some patterns so that you can use that on wrapping paper. So I wonder, you know, I'm trying to put myself in the position of someone listening who is thinking like, okay, I want to dive into licensing and I want to build that portfolio. So where will you get started? So first you create a series of pieces, or then you expand that into a pattern. What are some of the pieces that you like seeing when you look at a portfolio?
Yeah, I think this is a really important question because one of the things we see people kind of get confused about is that they create pieces without thinking of the context of art licensing. And so they'll like create for an Instagram challenge or like just create something for fun, but then they won't really have thought about where it would end up. They're just like, it's really cool. And we're like, it is really cool, but what kind of product would it fit on? And so I actually think if you start by thinking, well, my dream client, like everyone's dream is to create not everyone, but like, of course everyone wants to see their work in Target. Of course everyone wants to see their work on like as much as possible. But like, what is the product that you're like, wow, that would be it for me? Like, it's not about what other people have done. It's about what you would want. And I think if you can kind of zero in there and align your artwork style with the type of product you would like to see it on, that's going to be the first place. And then when you design, and you don't have to do patterns and lettering like greeting cards. You can, Katie's portfolio is basically all greeting cards. And that's her strength, so it works perfectly. But I think forgetting about that context is something that really can hold people back. And so if you, let's say you decide it's greeting cards, then I would want to see 10 to 20 greeting cards that are designed for major holidays, because those are the things that buyers are looking for most frequently. So that would be birthday, Christmas, you could do Hanukkah as well. You can do thank you cards. You could do sympathy. Birthday is literally someone's birthday is every day. So that's always a good one. And if you love holiday.
Birthday and Christmas are the biggest holiday occasion where greeting cards are
and
sold.
Valentine's Day is up there
FYI.
Too. So yeah, I think that if you're going to do greeting cards, which I think most people who are lettering, that's a really good place to start. I would just want to see 15 greeting cards that are for a specific holiday that would make sense for a mass amount of people to purchase. I love a greeting card that's so niche that only a certain amount of people will get it, but is that should be on your own site for sure. But then if you're doing one for the mass market, it should be something that a huge group of people would really gravitate towards. Yeah.
So major holidays. So just to understand what would be the process for me if I get started. So first I would choose a product. So something that I would love to see my artwork in. Then I will dive into a major holiday or a
well, the occasion would only be if your product is occasion based. So
Okay.
you might say my product is a pillow, in which case there are occasion based pillows
There
for
are.
fancy people who like to do that. I keep my same pillows all year round because I'm just a lame-o, I guess. But yeah, so it's more of if you're focusing on greeting cards or gift bags or just the gift market in general that you need to think about occasion.
Okay, got it. So now I have my portfolio. How many pieces do you like to see in a portfolio so that it becomes interesting or it feels interesting for someone looking to license art?
Yeah, I think 15 to 30 is a really good place to be. And I know people think they need 100, or so many. And the thing is, if you start with 30, then you start the tumbleweed effect. You start by people seeing your work and you can get that feedback. Whereas if you start with 100 and then you go out, you don't have any validation of your idea and you don't have any feedback. And so I wouldn't start in a silo. I would start with 15 to 30. And something I just want to clarify as well was you don't know what the intended product. Okay, so you keep a product in mind. And so like Katie said, if you're into outdoor stuff, you could consider a bike seat or a bike jersey or apparel or a sleeping bag or a backpack. You could keep all those in mind so that the content of your design would make sense for them. But they could come to you and be we're putting it on water bottles. And you're okay, and so greeting cards do primarily only make sense for greeting cards, but they might make sense for a gift bag, or they might come to you and say, we want to put this on a birthday t-shirt. And you're well, that's not going to sell, but okay, go for it, I guess. And so the product is really just to help you stay in the idea of the context of okay, if I was designing this for a greeting card, this is the only thing that would make sense. But it's just not, you don't know, which is kind of the fun part is I've had pieces get picked up for a tea towel, and I thought it was going to be home decor in a wall art or something. And I'm okay, that's exciting. So yeah, just, we don't get too married to the idea of what the end product would be unless pretty much greeting cards only make sense for greeting cards.
That's interesting because then I usually recommend lettering artists to show their work in context so that you can get an idea of what the design is for, or at least what that artwork, specific artwork that you have in your portfolio is intended for. But in the case of licensing, perhaps it's more useful to leave it open and not put it on a mock-up, or because that will then lead into a specific piece of work, and actually
Yeah.
it's suitable for different applications, right?
So what we like to do is, like, at the top of our portfolio is to show a set of a couple mock-ups that are like our key, just like, here's a greeting card I've done, here's a pillow, here's a onesie. They look really cute. And then you scroll down and you just see everything just laid out as JPEGs with no mock-ups. So there, you're like, here's a hint of the type of stuff that it could be, and now you use your imagination and put my art in whatever context you
And
want.
I think using mock-ups for social media or for like, let's say you're on Dribbble or Behance or something is great, but on your actual licensing portfolio where you're sending your buyers, they know how to do this. They know how to sift through like thousands of pieces of work. They know what they're looking for. They're coming looking for specific products, and so they can look at a piece and see if it will work or not. And so mock-ups are awesome for social media, especially if you're like, I want people to know that I want a license. It's like, great, show it on product. But yeah, if you don't need it in your portfolio, which is great because they can take a long time to like find the right one.
Absolutely, it simplifies the portfolio updating
Exactly.
and everything. So so great. I have my portfolio with 15 to 30 pieces of work. What's next if I want to break into this world?
So you got to do some outreach.
Yeah.
Everybody's favorite word. It's not that scary. Basically, you just need to compile a list of clients that make sense for your work, that you could see your work on their shelves. A really good way to do this, to get your list going, is to go shopping. Physically go into stores where you want your artwork to be and grab the products, turn them over, look at the information on the back. Do your own research on Google, go on LinkedIn, go on Instagram, search for certain licensing hashtags, like just do your deep dive sleuthing. You create your list. We like to do a spreadsheet that will contain like notes that we have about that brand, a contact email, a contact person, anything, and we keep it all in one place. And then we start to send some outreach emails. And so we cater each outreach email specifically to that brand so that they are much more likely to respond, because they're probably getting a bunch of these cut and paste emails all the time that feel very impersonal. So the more you can say in the first couple lines, like, this is who I am, this is why I think we'd be a perfect fit, this is something that I love about your brand that's special just to you. And then we will link our entire portfolio, but a really important thing that we also do is we create a specific PDF that we attach generally to the email, unless we see that they have submission guidelines that say don't do this. So tip, look for that before you send your email. Make sure you're not going to annoy them. But we do like to attach a PDF that has like 5 to 8 pulled pieces that we specifically think they will like because of the style of their brand, the vibe of their brand. So yeah, that's usually what our outreach emails look like, and you have to be prepared for potential non-responses, and there's going to be a lot of those, but there are also hopefully going to be yeses and exciting moments among those. And then there are always, we always encourage people to circle back if you don't hear back, or if you hear a no, not right now, make sure you do follow up later, because Ilana and I have gotten so many jobs from the follow-up emails. So a no right now doesn't mean no forever.
That's great. And also I love that you gave us a little bit of a framework on how to do that outreach, because I know this is a challenging one for creatives. Yes. And we often feel like we are spamming, or we are cold emailing people, strangers, and personalizing it, and also including, reducing the amount of steps that the person needs to do in order to see your work and read your email. That's already some of the work you need to be doing upfront, instead of just sending an email that feels like any other email that they receive every day. And also the follow-up is so essential, and that's why having that spreadsheet is so important, so that you can always mark, okay, I followed up on this date, and then they didn't reply, and then I will follow up again. So thank you for that. So I have my portfolio, I do the outreach, and then I follow up, and then I continue with this process over and over again, I guess.
Yeah. And you start to build relationships, and you start to have repeat clients and customers, and you start to get referrals. And I think licensing is an industry that tends to snowball in a lot of ways, including the ways that you get paid. We didn't mention yet that you get paid a lot of times with royalties, which is a percentage of the sale of the product that your art is on. So let's say you get 8% of a greeting card, and you'll get that quarterly while it's on the shelves. So that's when you have a lot of these deals that you've made, your past self has made, your future self is going to be very excited to go out to the mail or log on to your financial platform and see some direct deposits from royalties for products that you made 1, 3, even 5 years ago coming in. So that is one of our favorite things about licensing, is that stackable income.
So that's great. I think that gives us and our listeners a little bit of an intro to licensing your artwork. I know that you have a program for artists looking to break into licensing. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, it's a 6-month program called the Art Licensing Blueprint. And basically, this is the project that started Katie and I working together. And so it's like an accelerator course. And it basically has everything we've learned about art licensing. And one of our favorite things about it is that within the program, while you're in it, you can upload your work and get feedback from both the community and Katie and I. And we also have like a portfolio builder, so it gives you 100 different prompts which will help you create art for your portfolio. And those prompts can be used in so many different ways. So you could create thousands of pieces from those, because they include headlines, they include copy ideas, headlines, color palettes, inspiration. But we go over everything from like how do you get paid, what is a typical rate for certain projects, how should I reach out to clients, where can I find them, and so it's really in depth, and it's been really cool to see our students go on, and like we go to stores sometimes and like see their work on the shelves from one of our portfolio reviews, and it's just been really cool. And it's so awesome to see more artists feeling more comfortable about not only charging for their work, but like scaling their own businesses with the help of art licensing. So it's called the Art Licensing Blueprint. And yeah, it's a really fun course.
And you have a special code for our listeners. Tell us about it.
Yes, we have $100 off. And so I think you'll probably put all that in the show notes. We have a direct link for you as well. $100 off if you want to join us. It would be great. We'd love it.
So you need to use the code OpenStudio, and I'm gonna add the link to enroll. Okay. It is goodtype.us /ALBP minus enroll, and you can use the code OpenStudio to get 100% off the program. Yeah. So thank you, Ilana and Katie, for that.
$100 off.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, $100 off. That would be awesome.
That would be we would be idols. I mean, that would be amazing. I wish we could do that for everyone.
And out of work.
Yeah, we would.
But perhaps not great business women, but
yeah, don't follow our business advice, because we give 100% off.
That would be amazing.
So as we wrap up the episode, I would love to look into the future and see, what are the things that you see coming in the lettering industry? What are the things that excite you the most about the moment we are living right now? Yeah. When it comes to being an artist in this special era?
I think Katie and I have definitely been feeling this shift between, like, we've been on like the high of Instagram for so long, and I think people are starting to feel differently about the online space. And so that's kind of exciting, is like maybe people will spend less time on their phones, or maybe we'll like spend more time connecting in real life. Maybe we'll just all feel really badly about the algorithm. Who knows? But either way, there's like definitely a change in the air for that. But I think what I'm seeing is there's so much free education out there, and I think that's really empowering. The other thing I'm seeing is that I love that there are so many, like, for a while I was seeing all the same style of lettering, and right now I'm seeing so many like organic shapes and like people kind of stretching the boundaries, and it's always fun when you feel that like kind of fresh revival of a craft. And so I think, Katie was saying earlier, like, she had the stress of her letters wrong. And I think people are starting to embrace that, like, maybe we're breaking the rules a little more. And that's been kind of interesting to watch as well.
Yeah. I love breaking the rules. I just didn't even know them first. So I always encourage people to know the rules so you can break them strategically.
Exactly.
But I think I'm really excited to see people's anti-AI art. I think there's a lot more of that's going to come out. How do we distinguish ourselves from AI? How do we infuse the most humanity into our art that we can? And I think that kind of is alongside what you're saying, Ilana, with those like purposeful mistakes left in. We want to see the artist's hand. We want to see analog. We want to see unique objects being used and things like not being perfect. That's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I think it's funny you said that because right now it's so clear what's AI. Like, and it's only going to get better, and it's here, and so what are we going to do? But yeah, so right now it's like a pretty clear divide between something that's like super shiny and awkward to something that is handmade. And so I think, leaning into that kind of purposeful mistakes and that like true hand that pulls through all your work is really amazing.
And I'm thinking now, in those listening, aspiring artists or designers who are thinking, hey, I want to do or to make this my full-time career. And if someone is starting out today, I can imagine that they feel overwhelmed. Like, you have to do social media, you have to build that portfolio, as Ilana and Katie mentioned. You have to do client outreach. You have to create reels and show up on social media and on the internet. So what are, of all of the things that someone new coming into the industry needs to manage, what would you say are the things that they need to be focusing on first?
I think that's
making the work.
Yeah, for sure, making the work. But I think it's also like, you don't have to be on Instagram. You don't have to be on YouTube. You don't have to be anywhere. But if you can pick one, like, I think you'll get out of it. You can get what you need out of any of them as long as you actually like put the time in. And so if you decide like, I'm only going to use Pinterest, or I'm only going to do outreach, or I'm only going to post my work to LinkedIn, like, I think it's fine. I don't.
But even if you are using all of the tools and you're doing all the things to feed the algorithm, if your work isn't like exciting or something that you feel really good about and that people aren't responding to yet, then that's the thing that needs to get massaged. And that's the thing where you need to concentrate first. So I think we use the other things sometimes as a distraction. When really cool work is going to attract clients, even if it's posted like on a flyer on the side of the road. Like, the work can really speak for itself, and we sometimes get too caught up in the other things and we forget.
I think people also like you said, they use it as like it's a distraction, because people will say like, I've been sharing my work for 3 years, and you're like, you've posted 3 times this month, this year, and it hasn't been your work, or like you can't expect it to be immediate. Like, it would be different if you were like, I've posted my work every day for 2 years and no one has reached out to me. It's like, we think it's this we continue to like say it's not overnight, but then we believe that it's overnight. And so I think people just like have these completely unrealistic expectations, and because it takes up so much of our mental space, they think, well, I've been on Instagram. Well, if you haven't posted your work and shared about it multiple times, like, posting it once means nothing anymore. And so, we definitely use it as a little crutch or a distraction.
I want to be careful too when I say focus on your work and you want it to be good and exciting. Like, obviously that's the goal. We're not going to start there. I certainly did not start there, and that shouldn't keep you from posting and sharing your work along the way. Even if you're like, this isn't exactly where I want to be, showing your work along the way is very, very important. And there's still going to be people, even when you're like, this isn't where I ultimately want to end up, there's still going to be people that are blown away to see the process and also to watch you grow. So I wanted to add that caveat because I'm certainly not trying to say don't put it out there till it's perfect, because that day will never come.
Such a good reminder.
Yeah, in fact, putting it out there is what will make it perfect in terms of if there's a perfect somewhere down the road. But the fact that you produce work every day and you post it and you share it and you get that feedback is what will keep you, creating more of this of your work and making it better. So that's also part of the process of getting better at what you do. And I think it's such a good reminder as well, Ilana, what you mentioned of like, well, it won't happen overnight. It won't happen like from one month to the other. You need to build up on it. The same way that you need to stick to creating work so that it becomes better. So I think it all goes down to that, to creating the work, to doing it consistently, and knowing that the future you will thank you for that, for sticking at it and doing more and sharing your work.
Yeah, I think we overthink what we're posting, and like the lifespan of a post is like so short unless it's like something that goes so viral, which most of our posts won't. I mean, none of our posts go viral. So like that, they're just about connecting to people. And so, I think we just put so much pressure on each one, when if we just have fun with it and focus on creating work we're proud of, then like I think that's a really good place to be.
Yeah, take your greeting card mentality. I made a piece, I put it out. I made a piece, I put it out. And it's just that practice and that routine that'll loosen up your muscles and get you used to doing it.
I love that. So I always like to end the episode with a fun little game, which is called Finish the Sentence. I don't know if you know it. Like I start a sentence and you complete it, whatever comes to mind. So we are going to take turns because it's two of you. So the first one, Ilana is going to go, the second, Katie, and so on. All right. Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Ilana, the best part of my job is?
Katie.
That's so sweet. I think I would have answered the same way, except for with Ilana.
Yeah, thank you. The best part of your job is yourself.
Good mind. My go-to creative ritual is? Katie, that's you?
I know it's supposed to be me. I just don't have a lot of rituals. Sitting on the couch. I'm so sorry. It's not a good ritual.
The best advice I ever got was?
Ooh, I feel like, I don't know that anyone's ever told us that. Oh, you know what? This is top of mind. James Edmondson said this recently to us. Just like take your stupid ideas seriously. Like not too seriously, but take them seriously.
Like make them happen. Yeah.
My favorite type of project to work on is?
Greeting cards.
My partner always tells me that.
Like your which partner? Me partner or like her husband?
Whatever direction you want to take it.
Do me.
Okay, Katie, you go.
No, I meant you. Oh. What do I always tell you?
Get my own glass of water.
What?
I'll always be like, Greg, can you get me water? He's like, you're standing next to the fridge. Get it yourself.
No.
Okay,
I said
that's
do
your
it
partner.
with me as your partner.
Okay, let me rephrase it. Okay. My business partner always tells me that.
Oh, that it's like not that deep. Like yesterday I was complaining about something. She's like, it's really not that big of a deal. I was like, yeah.
We remind
you're right.
Both of us remind ourselves of that. Yeah.
I love it. I need a partner. I'm realizing.
Yeah. No, it's really helpful. Share the load.
Yeah.
No, it's really cool. I actually, just to add this, like my husband has a little bit of this role. He has a different job. He's an architect, but he gives me these reminders of like when I have a big event or something that is like burning inside me. He always reminds me of like, have fun. And that's for me is always like, oh, thank you for telling me that. I'm not having fun right now.
Here I was like throwing Greg under the bus, trying to think of something bad he did. Get your own water. He doesn't even tell me that. I just thought that's the thing that I go to. That's so funny. Well, your husband sounds like a great support system, which we all know is
so I
so
always tell
important.
him. So I always tell him like, "Wish me luck," and he tells me, I wish you fun," and that's really cool actually. Oh yeah, I know.
That's really sweet.
So I'm continuing with the sentences. We
We're
have three
doing
more.
so well.
We have two more. I'm a little bit ashamed of the fact that
I've been a perfectionist for so long.
Yeah. That's a good one.
if I weren't doing this, I would probably be.
You know, I've thought about this so much. Like maybe a professional organizer or like a cake taster. Is that a thing?
I'd be an interior designer.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense.
Katie and Ilana, thank you so much for being on the show today. For anybody who wants to find you, where can they find you?
Goodtype.us or on Instagram, we're at Goodtype.
Excellent. I'm going to add all of this to the show notes so that people can find you. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you also share this episode with anybody who is looking forward to dive into art licensing, also growing their businesses, build a career as lettering artists as Ilana and Katie did. And thank you so much for tuning in today, and see you on the next episode of Open Studio. Bye-bye, Katie.
Bye.
Ilana. Bye.
Bye.
So this is it. I hope you loved this episode. You can find me, the host of the show, on social networks at Martina Flor on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. If you have a question or comments, go to martinaflor.com/podcast, where you can see previous episodes, find show notes, and send voice memos with your comments and questions. You can also watch these episodes on YouTube. Just go to martinaflor.com/YouTube to find them. You can, of course, listen to all our episodes on your favorite podcast platform. If you loved this episode, subscribe to this podcast. And if you leave us a review, it will help others find us. Thank you all for listening, and see you in the next episode of Martina Flor's Open Studio. Bye-bye.